The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hi, everybody.
And it's Friday. And you know what that means? Mailbag.
Mailbag. Andy, I love the mailbag.
Me too. Me too. It's
Before we
fantastic.
start, you know what Friday meant for me this morning?
What did it mean?
Friday meant my wife and child gone away and me by myself thinking I will sleep in forever and staying up late last night thinking it won't matter. 8 a.m. jackhammer outside my window.
No.
And then while we were getting ready for this podcast, there was the jackhammer going, and then these motorcyclists went by my window. Now I live on a cul-de-sac, mind you. I don't live in the big fast cities of New York. Okay?
Right.
I live on a cul-de-sac in Orange County, California. I had jackhammers and motorcycles, and I was like, I felt like I was in like some sitcom about a guy trying to sleep.
Right. And then like after the motorcycle gang, like there's a guy like right outside your window with like a bell, and you're like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just trying to wake you up.
Just ringing the bell.
Bong.
Why are you ringing the bell?
So to complete like the sitcom thing, like with your wife and daughter gone, did you consider like putting your dog in a kennel just to like be as alone as you could possibly be?
My answer to that would be too long and involved, but that I hadn't thought of that. That would be hilarious. Like
Nice.
that would be pretty great. Actually, I let the dog up. The dog is not allowed on the bed at night. I know some people have dogs that they let sleep on their bed.
Sure.
We are not that family.
Sure.
But first crack of dawn, we let the dog out.
Sure. Yes.
So I let him up a little early this time. It
Sure.
was still nighttime, but it was like early morning. So
Mhm.
it's a little lonely in the house here. It's a little
Right.
lonely in the Duvall house. So the dog wanted up a little early, and I acquiesced.
When I was living in New York, as you know, I did live alone for a very short amount of time, but for most of my 6 years, I had a roommate, and our schedules always, whoever the roommate was, wherever I was living, our schedules always seemed to like every time I wanted to be alone, I wasn't alone, right?
Right.
And every time that I didn't care, I was alone. So
Right.
what I would always say, and I think I may have said this to you, was like when I wanted to be alone and I was actually going to be alone, like there was actually going to be a time, what I would say, someone would ask me like, "Are you excited about being alone?" I was like, I am going to strip naked and slather myself in peanut butter and run around the apartment just
Yep.
because I can.
Yep.
I never actually did it, but that was
No.
my thing. That would like I could have, you know?
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing I can't do right now,
Right. Yes.
but I'm not. I'm gonna watch TV. Really, is what's gonna happen.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? I support that. I support that.
I might do a little light ironing.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
I mean, it's really a banner day.
really,
It's really special.
Some light scrapbooking.
Yes.
Okay, let's get down to it.
The bag of mail. Let's reach into the bag of mail.
Wait.
Nice.
Question number 1.
Oh.
Heroes. There are no such thing. Okay. From frequent contributor to the podcast, Allison. Hello, Allison.
Hi, Allison. I wonder if Allison knew that her like 2 letters could explode into 14 questions that we've turned them into. We've really parsed her out.
It's true. That's true. That's right. She's a frequent contributor, even though she like emailed us once, like 7 years ago.
Right. We're like, well, let's pull. It's like the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's so much to pull out of these emails.
That's
it's
right.
amazing.
Dense. So, from Allison, does an actor have the ability to single-handedly ruin a movie? Are there any movies that are otherwise brilliant but completely destroyed by one actor's performance, rendering them unwatchable?
Wow. I don't think so. Now, Liz, here's what I think. Right?
Is that your answer to the first one or to the second one? Okay.
Oh, there's 2 separate questions. It seems like one question.
Here's how I divide.
I don't think a movie could be brilliant and then be ruined by one actor.
That is precisely what I think. Yes.
The closest a movie that I can think of has come is one of my favorite movies, Heat.
I was going to say, I bet that's what you're going to talk about.
Yeah. And I've talked about it before in this podcast, so I won't belabor the point, except to say that I think Al Pacino's performance in that movie is one of the most painful things ever put onto cinema, filmness, digital, whatever they shot it on. Badness. But
I don't think Michael Mann had
nevertheless,
discovered digital by then, so it was probably still film.
I would put Heat if it had had a better Al Pacino, and let's face it, a better Al Pacino's wife in that movie. I know you don't like her at all.
Nope.
Okay, but Natalie Portman's in that whole sequence, so it works out. She's the redeeming factor of that whole sequence.
Fair.
If they had given it a new Al Pacino and probably a new Al Pacino's wife, but definitely new Al Pacino,
Yeah.
that movie to me would be out of 10, probably 10.
Sure.
Maybe 9 just because you leave 10 for like Casablanca and
Right.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Right.
But it would
Lawrence
be,
of Arabia, yes.
yeah,
Right.
it would be 10 or 9.5.
Sure.
Because of Al Pacino, who is the second biggest person in the movie and the quote-unquote hero, because of him and his awful performance, to me that movie gets shot down to 7.5, maybe 8. It's
Wow.
still great.
Sure.
It's a great movie. I love it.
Sure.
I'll say 7.5 just to be something where my hands move like this. I'm gonna be try to be like realistic. It's probably not an 8, but it's really high still on my list.
Yeah. The
And that's the
action
most
sequences in
obvious
that movie
example.
are just astonishing. They're just astonishing.
Astonishing. The final showdown is amazing. The bank robbing heist sequence is, and I use this word carefully, breathtaking.
I agree. I agree.
Like it's the kind of thing where you actually are holding your breath at points,
Yes.
not realizing you're doing it, and then you're like, "Oh right, had to remember to breathe."
Right. Why are there spots in front of? Oh, right. I'm not breathing. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The flip side of that is a movie that could have been great.
Okay.
Wasn't great probably because of several people in it, but definitely because of the main character. We talked about this recently as well. Oz the Great and Powerful.
Sure.
I think it actually had the potential. There was a lot of things about it that meant it could have been great.
Yeah.
And I think that James Franco, who I actually think is a good actor, and I was glad he got nominated for 127 Hours, and I love him in Freaks and Geeks,
Yep.
was horribly miscast in this movie. And
My
was good.
my only response to that is I didn't feel quite the same way as you did, and it might be because he wasn't the only person in that movie that was miscast.
Right. You
So
believe Mila Kunis and Rachel Weisz were also miscast.
I think if you weren't Michelle Williams, you were miscast in that movie. I mean, even like Zach Braff,
Well,
you know,
I sort of feel like Zach Braff is always miscast, but that's.
I actually like.
Oh,
him.
I have no, I don't.
Heyo.
Have
Yeah.
one way or the other. It's
Right.
just he's one of those guys that people have as a punching bag.
Right.
You either like punch Zach Braff or like heart Zach Braff with ginormous lady hearts, and I don't either of them. So
I don't either, but I confess I'm closer to Lady Hearts.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I thought it was great, and obviously they had to do like the Wizard of Oz thing, where like people who show up at the beginning in the real life show up in Oz where applicable, and I get that, and I thought Braff was actually great as the voice of the monkey,
Right.
but he was distractingly. It was like watching someone it was like watching a 21st century person when I watched him in the carnival scenes at the beginning.
I'm gonna say something about Sam Raimi, and I want to know what you think,
Okay,
because I think Sam Raimi is probably a genius.
sure.
And I love him, and everything I hear about him as far as someone to work with is that he's just amazing, and I don't doubt it. And he has made so many movies I love.
My favorite, real quick,
Yeah.
thing said about him, like all of the main actors were asked on the red carpet at the Oz and Great and Powerful premiere what they thought, like what are the positives and negatives, and they all said some variation of positives everything, negatives nothing.
Right.
Just
And I know,
boom.
I know Tobey Maguire just adored him working
Yes.
on Spider-Man. I mean,
Yes.
I just don't doubt anything bad about Sam Raimi at all. I just think
Anything
I
good.
don't think
Anything
I don't
right.
think I don't doubt anything good. I don't think anything bad.
Yes.
I think he reminds me a little bit of Tim Burton in the sense that they have really distinctive styles and really wonderful like ideas and imaginations, but sometimes they get stuck with they don't necessarily always know how to pick the best script. And the strength in their and like they don't always have the best taste when it comes to scripts, and they also fall back on certain casting decisions. I mean, with Tim Burton and Johnny Depp now, it's like just
Stop.
Maybe it's just because I'm sick of Johnny Depp. But like, just come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh. So, anyways,
So is that what you were going to say about Sam Raimi?
yeah,
Or
that's Sam Raimi. Like, he's great. His taste is sometimes questionable when it comes to scripts, and like you can't say that about a guy like Scorsese. Like
yeah,
his taste is not questionable. Like you might not love one of his scripts, but it's like you feel
right,
like
right.
Anyways, I think Sam Raimi's a guy who rises and falls based on the strength of a script and the strength of the actors he happens to get.
So here's my response to that. You know, we so often, and this isn't just true with movies, like so often when someone is a genius, and I agree with you, I do actually believe that Sam Raimi is a genius.
Yeah.
We assume that they are geniuses in sort of every part of their sphere, right?
Yep.
And there is, like, whether or not Scorsese is more of a genius in terms of filmmaking than Sam Raimi
Sure.
is kind of beside the point. Because
Sure.
Sam Raimi, because Scorsese is also a genius at choosing a script,
Yes.
right? Does that
I'm
make
with
sense?
you 100%. Yeah, I don't like to do the quantifiable, like, this
Exactly.
person's better. You and I don't do
Exactly,
that.
exactly. But regardless, like I think so to
But I
take
know
away
exactly
from
what you
the
mean.
the quantifying to leave it in qualifying, I think that's my opinion. It's he like it is even in like Spider-Man 3, which was not a good movie. He did everything well. Like it
Yeah.
was, but it was just like, oh, you could
The
just see
script, it was too much. The script wasn't
and you
right,
could see
and the
the fingerprints
characters.
of the studio
Yeah.
all over it,
Yep.
and someone like Scorsese or uh, Spielberg or any number of people or David Fincher,
Right.
there are ways they can make their movies feel like one of their movies, and
Yep.
even if you don't love it, they are geniuses in that way. They like, oh, that might not have been great, but it felt like a Spielberg movie,
Yep.
and to whatever level it did, it worked.
Yep.
Whereas Sam Raimi, even in his bad movies, there's probably a scene or two where you're like, wow, visually that was amazing.
There were some really cool scenes in Oz the Great and Powerful.
Yes.
Really cool scenes.
Yes.
But you want to see the best Sam Raimi movie in the last 10 years, go see Drag Me to Hell.
Oh yeah.
Man, Drag Me to Hell was awesome.
So good. What happened to Alison Lohman?
Seriously. No, seriously, what happened to Alison Lohman?
I know.
Alison Lohman is fantastic.
Yes.
Matchstick Men,
Oh yeah.
Big
Yes.
Big Fish,
Yes.
Drag Me to Hell. She was in a movie about orchids called Orchid something. I never saw it, but she's called the Orchid. I don't know. Anyways, Alison Lohman, where are you? Come back to us.
We're so.
Wow, we
Second
got
Breakfast
distracted.
Nation. This should tell you something. Like Allison, we love your question, but we don't sort of love where it takes us because we don't like to talk about things that we don't like.
So we started just immediately going into things we love.
Indeed.
By the way,
So-
you never answered the question yourself. I
so-
never made you answer it.
So very, very briefly.
Yes.
Because I agree with you, Phil, that I don't think you can say a movie is brilliant if one performance can truly ruin it. I don't think an actor has the ability to single-handedly ruin a movie. But there are actors that I avoid.
Okay.
Actually, the two that come to mind are actresses, and thankfully they're not in that much.
You misogynist.
It's true. It's true. I don't like them because they're women.
It's true. That's what I heard about you. Yeah.
You're right. I don't, and it's because I don't ever believe them. You have said, and I agree with you. You have said repeatedly that that when we watch a movie, what we are looking for really is actors who tell the truth.
Yep.
And I don't believe their truth at all. And
You're a liar!
and the two people that come to mind instantly are Jessica Alba and Ashley Judd, which makes me sad because I will avoid, I just won't see a movie with Ashley Judd in it, which means I haven't seen a movie called Bug, which stars Ashley
Oh, I've
Judd
heard that's fantastic.
and Michael Shannon, and it's directed by William Friedkin, and I'm just not going to see it. I mean, if you see it and you're like, it will change your life, I will see it, but I will kind of hate it.
My sister-in-law, she gets mad at me
Okay.
because Her favorite movie. Oh, God, are you ready?
Probably not.
Double Jeopardy,
No.
which I've seen, and I've classified it quite often as the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
No.
And she's like,
Absolutely.
"How do you not love Double Jeopardy?" And I'm like, "Because everything about it is bad.
I find it pretty easy not to love Double Jeopardy.
It's
I don't
really
have to
all
work
I
at
have to
it.
do is just sit there watching it, and I'm filled with hate." I also say I want to say two things about Ashley Judd.
Yeah.
With you, I'm with you. I'm actually with you. So much so that I didn't even think about it.
Sure.
Like, didn't even comprehend. Like, oh, well, of course, no. I will.
Right.
I don't have. I'm not going to say anything about Jessica Alba at this point, but I will say that I don't have because I don't have an opinion.
Sure.
My opinion is strictly formed on the basis of the fact that I think she's attractive, and that's not a good enough opinion of her acting. I just don't have enough information,
Sure.
data.
Sure.
Ashley Judd, however, I have the data.
Yeah.
Ashley Judd is considering going into politics. I think that would be fantastic because even though I think she and I probably disagree on a lot of political things, I have read some of her writing, and she is very intelligent, very well spoken, very thoughtful. And very thoughtful in her in the way that she approaches this stuff. And I'd love to see her in the Kentucky Congress or Senate.
Yes.
And then she also wouldn't act anymore because she is
Indeed.
just
I will say this because I actually genuinely like her as a person for all the reasons.
Oh, she
that you
seems
mentioned.
wonderful.
And frankly,
she married a race car driver.
That's right, which is just awesome.
Yeah.
A Scottish race car driver.
Fantastic.
Yes. I have to respect somebody who is that devout a fan of a college sports team. She is a huge Kentucky Wildcats basketball. I mean, I imagine she's also a fan of their other teams, but obviously Kentucky is all about the men's basketball.
Yep.
So yeah, she is.
She seems like the coolest chick. I just cannot stand watching her in movies.
Sure, like Jack Nicholson is to the Lakers, as Ashley Judd is to Kentucky.
Yeah.
I also want to mention two people real quick. One, as you say, I don't have the data, but the other, I've seen him in other things, and I really like him. So this is not the first time I've said this. Shame on you, George Lucas. And the two people I want to mention are Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen. I don't have the data on Jake Lloyd, but he is so bad in The Phantom Menace that I just don't believe he's actually that bad of an actor. I can't believe he's actually that bad. And Hayden Christensen I haven't seen him in a lot, but everything else that I've seen him in, I've liked him in. If you think he is not a talented actor, watch Shattered Glass. It's not an Academy Award-winning performance, but it's just really solid, and it's an enjoyable movie. And everybody's good in it. Peter Sarsgaard's great, and so that's my.
Well, we see what he does with good actors. I mean, he had Liam Neeson and Sam Jackson and Natalie Portman and Ewan McGregor.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, yes. So that's
for shame.
For shame.
I have one in my heart of a person that ruins movies that I love.
Tell me.
And I'm not. No, that's what I was going to say. I'm not going to say it on the air.
Okay.
And the reason is because I've met this person once.
Oh, okay.
However briefly, and I've met this person's spouse, and they're never going to ever see this conversation, and we're not friends, and they don't know me, and if they saw me again, I'd have to introduce myself. It's not like we're friends in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I
can't do it. I understand.
Nope.
I understand.
Nope. I'll tell you off the air. And Allison, if you call me, I will tell you who it is immediately. But I can't put that out into the world.
That's totally fair.
I have
totally
love
fair.
and respect, and I can't do it.
Shall we move on?
Yes, please, God. Can we move on to something happier? That question makes me feel so bad.
Yes.
I'm leaving that question with one thing in my heart, which is I wonder where Allison Lohman is. Go ahead.
Indeed. From a frequent contributor to the podcast, Bobby. What's up, Bobby?
What's up?
I read today about the contract negotiations between Marvel and Robert Downey Jr. for future Avengers and Iron Man movies. I guess the theory is that if negotiations don't work out, they could recast Tony Stark moving forward. So here's the question. How do you feel about roles being recast from one movie to the next in a film series? Terrence Howard, Don Cheadle in Iron Man, Katie Holmes, Maggie Gyllenhaal in Nolan's Batman trilogy, etc. Does it make a difference if the series is self-contained and short-lived, like a trilogy, versus a more disconnected, longer-running series? Here I'm thinking James Bond. Does it make a difference if the films come out a year apart or a decade later, Clarice in Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal? I know there are many examples ranging from minor characters to leading roles, such as Jack Ryan, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.
Go ahead. You go first, my friend.
So you know what popped into my head as I was trying to. So just to answer the question, I don't really care. I don't really care. I care deeply.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know, right? The laissez-faire guy is kind of laissez-faire.
You're so like, whatever.
Well, I'll tell you.
This movie that says it's based on the truth, truthful? No, I don't care.
I don't care.
It could change actors from scene to scene, and it would be like, as long as the story works, I'm in.
You are not a nice person. Okay, so so here's when I care, and I actually do care, and this is weird, but we live in a world of the internet, right? And I find out about casting months and months and sometimes years before a movie comes out. When I find out that they have been, I didn't love Katie Holmes in Batman Begins. I didn't dislike her. I thought she was fine. And I really like Maggie Gyllenhaal. I think she is a phenomenal actress. But when that casting choice was announced, I was like, ugh. Just because great. Now I have to reacclimate, and that will do nothing but take me out of the movie for however long it does. But by the time I was sitting in the theater, by the time I saw the first scene with Maggie Gyllenhaal, I was like, okay, we're good to go. So it bothers me more sort of in the anticipation than the actual thing. But the thing that struck me, and maybe this is why I don't care, one of the things that I did when I was very, very young was in terms of daytime television that I watched.
Ah, yes, go ahead.
The 1960s sitcom Bewitched.
Yep.
The husband on that show was just replaced in the middle. And because I was watching on a syndication, they would, of the 5 days in the week, 2 would be one guy, 3 would be one guy, the other guy, 4 would be one guy, the next week 1 would be the... And to make things more confusing, the actors were both named Dick. First was Dick York. First was Dick York playing Darren Stevens.
Dick Sargent, right?
And then Darren was played by Dick Sargent. And it's when you look into it, you're like, Dick York and Dick... Wait, is that is York his
I remember this
name?
all.
Right?
You're tapping right into my childhood in a way that I am not.
So I was like, and that did bug me. Yeah. But after a while, it didn't bug me, and so maybe that's like the vaccination that I got
you ready. They got you ready.
Yes. It doesn't. In terms of I am more willing to accept it, even more than I already am, if it's a long layover, such as Clarice from Silence of the Lambs to Hannibal. Although I think I like Julianne Moore, but Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling to Julianne Moore as Clarice Starling is a significant step down. So that made me sad. Yep. But yeah, and James Bond, and honestly, in the coming years and decades, I think we're going to look at some of these comic book series. Not all of them. I don't think all of them will continue, but I think things like Iron Man, if they can continue to cast good people, we will look at them like we look at James Bond now.
Okay. I mean, I hear you.
Because they're not going to stop making them, and Robert Downey Jr. is.
They will when they stop making money. They will when they stop making money.
Well, that's true.
And I think they'll stop making money in the next 5 years, maybe 10.
Okay.
I don't think this comic. I don't think the comic book thing lasts. I think it's a fad that's awesome. I love the movies.
I don't think it lasts to the extent that it is now, but we've had Superman movies for decades. We've had Batman movies for decades. Yeah. And I think. But
Iron Man was never a popular superhero.
No, that's true.
It became popular based on the strength of Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau's vision.
I agree with you. I just think that of any of them right now, I think the momentum that it has is strong enough to have the best chance of surviving a casting switch.
Okay.
Assuming the next person they get is.
I think it could survive it financially.
Yes.
Okay.
Fair.
Do you want to guess how I answer this?
Not like I do.
I hate it. I hate it every time. There's only one. Actually, here's the one time I don't hate it.
Tell me.
On the television show Louis C.K. just recasts people.
Yes. Yes.
Willy-nilly.
He was my favorite.
His wife is white in one season and then black in the next season, but
Yes.
the kids stay the same.
The kids stay the same. My favorite is the one where he's on the date with the woman in the pizza place where the kids bully him, and then just a couple weeks later,
Yeah.
she's playing his mom in a flashback.
Yes, his mom.
Yes.
Amazing.
And he's talked about it. He's like, I cast the person who's right for the role, and that's it.
He's a little bit of a liar because he cast the person that he wants to cast to be.
That's true.
That's
true.
fine.
Yes. Yes.
He pulls it off on a TV show that is a movie that is about absurdity and neurosis. So it's fine.
Agreed.
I hated, and I love Julianne Moore.
Sure.
Hated her in Hannibal. Not because of anything she did wrong. It's not her fault. It's that you can't create a role like Clarice Starling that wins someone an Oscar and is so iconic and so important and was a very defining movie for me growing up as far as like the first time I ever saw. I grew up as a boy, as you well may know, and and so to me, I always looked up to men. I always looked up to actors. I never really thought about females. Like it's not that I didn't see them. It's just that I wasn't like, wow, that actress is amazing.
Extrapolate and put yourself in their shoes.
I couldn't go beyond she's pretty. I wasn't ready yet. I wasn't there.
Sure.
And Silence of the Lambs was the first movie where I was just like, that woman knocked my socks off. I was 11, and I was like, whoa, okay, I get it. That's something.
Right.
So the idea of recasting that to me is shameful. I hated that they recast Terrence Howard, and I thought Don Cheadle did a lovely job. Mm-hmm. Luckily, it's so much about Iron Man, and now there's 2 movies with Don Cheadle, so I'm like, okay, he's roadie. But I love Terrence Howard, and I'm totally annoyed that he's not in the other ones. The Maggie Gyllenhaal thing drives me insane. It is the one blemish on an otherwise flawless movie. I love The Dark Knight, and I'm so furious. That's true, though. Like, I'm like, every time she says anything, it's not her fault. You're right. She's a totally good actor. And every time she says something, I'm like, whatever, you're not Katie Holmes. Whatever, not Katie Holmes.
So what do you think about James Bond?
I never grew up on James Bond and never cared.
Okay.
And I just never cared about the show. I had no emotional investment, and I have a hard time believing you're supposed to have an emotional investment on James Bond. Now, I have been impressed by the idea that has come out recently that 007 is a rank or a position they give different guys, and so there's a 007 throughout time.
Right.
But I always think of James Bond as a cipher. I think of him as a vehicle for exploiting action and sex for whatever generation happens to be watching right now.
That's fair.
And that sounds really cynical, but c'est la vie. I didn't grow up watching Dr. No. I didn't grow up watching Moonraker. I didn't grow up watching Goldfinger. So I grew up with Roger Moore, and well, I did though because that's what was out. You know?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm sad for you.
Was probably the first one I ever saw.
Sure.
And then like an Octopussy, and then Living Daylights, and I was like Timothy Dalton, and I was like, who cares? I just don't care. And so they would change characters, and I'd be like, the character of James Bond never had any. Now, I really like James Bond, the new guy. I like Daniel Craig. I love the movies. Mm-hmm. That being said, I am still watching. You and I talked about this after I saw Skyfall. I was like, this guy, like, I'm rooting for this guy who is a complete and utter. And the film, I'm not even going to say James Bond is misogynistic. I'm going to say I think James Bond movies are misogynistic. And I just, like, I'm watching it, and there's a level of disbelief. I just can't get to it. I'm like, well, I don't know, man. I don't know. So, anyways, I don't like it. I hate it every time. Just like I don't like based on true stories where there's anything false. I'm just a freak about that. So that's where I am with that. Okay, so here's the deal. In audience, Andy and I it's go time for Andy and I. We have to make a decision. We've done 2 questions. We're at 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Do we go to a third question?
It is a
We
question.
have a third question in the banks. I think it would take us 15 minutes at least.
Yes. Maybe. I think we save it.
Okay. It's the first time in the history of Second Breakfast where you're seeing restraint, people.
That's true. That's true. Shall we tease it though for next week's mailbag? Because it's a great question.
Go ahead. I love the idea.
Yeah. Next week, frequent contributor to the mailbag, Andrew Thurmond. Andrew, we will totally be taking down your ranking the top 10 baseball movies of all time.
Which goes against our rule of ranking, but we're doing it.
But we're doing it anyway. Very excited for it. But in the meantime, this brings us to the end of another week of Second Breakfast podcast. And as always, it has been a blast. We hope you've had fun too. If you have questions for future mailbags, please email us at secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com, and we will read your thing on the air, and we will answer your thing on the air, because we will pretty much do whatever you tell us to do.
It's true.
Right? So...
Sorry, someone told me to cluck like a chicken, so I did it.
Cluck went the chicken.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.